Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
The story we're continuing to discuss from yesterday has no logical conclusion except death or surrender. As Syria lay siege to Samaria, the people were starving, and King Jehoram had given up hope. In his anger, he burst in on Elisha with plans to kill him. But Elisha had a word of hope from the Lord. From a human perspective, they had no hope, but Elisha told them, "Hear the word of the Lord. Tomorrow, about this time, a seah of flour will be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria." He didn't bother explaining how God would do this. Elisha himself may not have known, but he gave them hope. We don't hear King Jehoram's perspective on this, but an officer with him saw Elisha's prophecy as impossible, even for God. He took it on himself to answer back, "Look, if the Lord can make windows in heaven, could this thing be?" There's several problems with that. For one thing, saying if the Lord could doesn't make sense at all. There's no if with God. He can. And if He says He will, He will. As Numbers 23:19 says, "God is not a man that He should lie, nor a son of man that He should repent. Has He said, and will He not do? Or has He spoken, and will He not make good?" Another problem with what the officer said. Doesn't he remember the manna from heaven? If God could do that every day for 40 years, flour and barley couldn't be too difficult. The problem this guy had was that his God was too small. But don't we do that too? We limit God to what our tiny brains can handle, when if we trusted Him, He would totally blow our minds. Elisha told this doubting officer, "God will do what He says. In fact, you shall see it with your eyes, but you shall not eat of it." Wow. You'll see God do what you said He couldn't, but you won't be able to benefit from it. We'll have to revisit this guy. I'm going to name him Lo Amun, which means no faith. But now we move on to some interesting people, lepers. People with skin diseases, according to the Old Testament law, had to live outside the cities so as not to transmit their disease to others. So these 4 leprous men were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They weren't allowed in the city. Besides, everyone there was starving. But outside the city, the Syrians encamped, the enemy. The lepers decided to surrender to the enemy. They would either feed them or kill them, and either one sounded better than starving to death. So off they went to the Syrian camp. But no one was there. God had caused them to hear a great army, maybe that same army Elisha's servant had seen surrounding them before. The angel army that protected God's people, and they had fled. Imagine the lepers' surprise and relief to find food for the taking, silver, gold, and other goods just there. After they'd eaten their fill and carried off some of the bounty, they realized how selfish they'd been. I can totally see myself there, can't you? So they hurried back to the city to inform the king. King Jehoram, probably advised by our faithless friend Lo Amun, didn't believe. He thought sure the Syrians were playing a trick to lure the Israelites out of Samaria to destroy them. But sure enough, the story checked out. And not only was the city saved, but God had plentiful food and other provisions right outside their doors. And God used 4 lepers in this miracle. He uses people and things we'd never thought of to do things that we'd never dreamed. And our friend Lo Amun, the king's officer, did see this. In fact, the king charged him with keeping the gate. But the hungry people of the city, excited about the prospect of food, trampled him, and he died. He didn't get to partake in the bounty God had provided. So for him, the faithless one, this story did not have a happy ending, Actually, though the city was saved and the people fed, it wasn't exactly a happy ending for God either. If we look at it from his perspective, he did this awesome miracle for his people, yet they continued to sin and worship idols instead of the one who had saved them. We don't see a record of revival or of the king destroying the high places or tearing down the Asherah poles. Nope, everything just continued as before. We don't want that to be us. We don't want to be like Lo-Amun, who doubted God's promise and didn't get to participate in it. But even more, we don't want to be the ones who receive God's goodness, then go about our lives unchanged. What has God done in your life lately that you need to share with others? What has he taught you that others need to know? Who can you tell? How else can you show your appreciation to God for all he's done in your life?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through his word. You can listen to other episodes at our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.